Welcome back to the podcast and to the latest edition of Two Blues Transfer News, our weekly show talking all things Chelsea. If it's a transfer, confirmed, rumours, in, out, if it's related to Chelsea, we're going to be talking about it. And of course, we are also going to be talking about Chelsea's continuing progress in the Club World Cup. What a week to be a Chelsea fan. 4-1 demolition of Benfica and £100 million spent. Two more signings to add to the team in Joao Pedro and Jamie Gittens. So we will talk about both of those players, as well as a couple of other rumours, potentially some outgoings, momentum being gained on those rumours, potentially to some Premier League rivals. So before we get into it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And of course, at the end of the video, we will look toward Chelsea's quarterfinal tonight against Palmeiras in the Club World Cup. But just to start us off, obviously, 4-1 demolition of Benfica. Not a bad way to start the week. Chelsea fans were up in arms when we lost to Flamengo a couple of weeks ago. What a blessing that loss looks to have been. I mean, the run that we have been on and potentially could go to the final with in this Club World Cup, you know, in the context of the other teams in the competition, has been fairly kind, fairly easy. So I don't know whether it was part of Maresca's grand plan to lose that game to Flamengo to ensure us an easier route to the final, but it's worked so far. The one thing I will say is Benfica, while they may not have been the most glamorous, the best team, and obviously you look at the European heavyweights, the Giants seem to be on the other side of the draw. Benfica are very much a Champions League quality side, very much a top European side. They might not be able to compete with the top teams in the Prem, in Spain, in Germany, in France, but they're still a good team. And while Charms likes to write off Liga NOS, he is not a fan of teams like Benfica, Sporting, Porto, in terms of their heritage, their pedigree on a bigger stage. When it comes to the real teams, Benfica is a team that we have tended to get the better of. Particularly prominent memory is obviously, of course, when we came up against them in the 2013 Europa League final. Branislav Ivanovic hanging that header up under the bar, seemed to hang in the air for about 20 seconds, that header. But they've always been a team that have been, fairly respected, fairly respectable level. I don't think anybody could look at them and go, oh yeah, they're an easy team to play against. This is the caliber of team that we will be playing against in, I'd like to think, definitely the group stage of the Champions League, potentially even knockout stages, round of 16 type team. And Chelsea showed that over 90 minutes, I mean, we dominated them. I don't know what the ref was doing. Ref was having an absolute mare. And the referees as a whole across this Club World Cup have been, it's just been, the whole officiating system has been an abomination. The way that the whole tournament has been run has been a detriment to the sport rather than a testament. So, I mean, that in itself is a video that myself and Charms will probably jump on after the Club World Cup has finished. How was it received? What were your expectations against reality? I've been very underwhelmed, not only by the quality in football. I think there have been quite a few teams that have been fairly lackluster. Conditions definitely haven't helped the teams, but it hasn't been as competitive as I would have liked. That being said, I think Chelsea have been very professional in our 4 or 5 games. I think the way that we dealt with Benfica over not just 90 minutes, over 5 hours after that, break in play for impending weather or whatever ridiculous reason they cited. We were fairly dominant throughout. And I think definitely at the back, I think there's been a few individual mistakes, but we tend to look quite solid at the back, definitely in possession, passing the ball around. Cucurella looks fantastic on the left side, still doing those marauding runs down the left, but also in terms of his inversion, being able to go and play in that centre mid and do that kind of utilitarian 2-3 positions role. He has come into his own. He is absolutely fantastic at that. And people say, why can't Reece James do what Cucurella does on the other side? I think Cucurella has just embraced this new responsibility, this new role in this team, and I think he is moulded to it. Reece James has obviously played, far less consistently over the last few seasons, and I feel like Marc Cucurella, playing week in, week out in a system and with managers that favour him, I feel like he has grown to a point where he could switch fairly easily. He could, if he needed to switch into that back three as a centre back, he could. If he needed to be out and out left back, he could. If he needed to do the inverted role, he could. Whereas Reece James, I feel like, and this is no slight on his talent, his ability, but I feel like his transition will be a little less smooth because he has been kind of clunky in out for 2-3 seasons now, whereas Marc Cucurella has been, go again, 90 minutes top performance. And yes, his responsibilities have changed and been tweaked slightly, but more often than not, his role stays exactly the same. So Marc Cucurella, I think, a player that's benefiting, if anything, from this lack of break. I think ever since that kind of January period in under Pochettino, the back end of that season, the last 6 months, obviously then he had the Euros, then he had last season, and he's just continuing. He is not relenting, not letting up, and a fair few of these players I look at and think they would benefit from a break. I think maybe Cole Palmer would benefit from having a few weeks off. Moises Caicedo, get his legs back. But at the same time, when you look at the performances, the output that they're achieving every single week, I don't, would a break stop the momentum? Would giving them a rest make them forget the muscle memory? It's almost like they've grown so accustomed to dropping these worldies that their body knows nothing else. And I'm not going to sit here and complain if Cucurella and Moises Caicedo were played every single minute of every single game next season, but they continue to perform at the levels at which they are. I've got no problem whatsoever. Obviously, the consistency is... the main issue, for consistency is up front. I think with last season, the defence definitely improved. I think the midfield was the most consistent with Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo, Romeo Lavia. I think they were probably the most consistent performers. But then moving forward into the final third, that's where, you had some players firing, some not. It always seemed to be rolling, whereas if Neto was on form, madueke wasn't, and then if madueke was on form, Neto wasn't. If Jackson was on form and Kunku wasn't, vice versa. And I feel like that definitely needs to be fixed. We still need to, and with all the signings, all the activity in the transfer market, all the attacking players that Chelsea are bringing in, I don't think we've still nailed down a front three. And it will be interesting with the addition of Joao Pedro to the squad. Now, that's another player that can do 2-3 roles. I would argue that Joao Pedro is a number 9. I think that is not in the traditional sense of the word, but I think if you were to categorise him as one position, I'd say he's a 9. The fact that he is a little bit more fluid and can maybe play off a striker, play off the wing, play as a second striker, play as a 10, whatever you want to call it, he has flexibility, he has fluidity. And I do feel like I've just got a gut feeling that there could be a little system tweak. I feel like Enzo Maresca has been setting up in pre-season or in the Club World Cup so far, ideally with 3 midfielders. And I think Andre Santos, even though we haven't seen very much of him so far, I feel like he will factor into that plan. And whether it means it's Caicedo and Lavia, Caicedo and Santos deeper with Enzo playing ahead of them, or Palmer playing ahead of them, I don't really know how Maresca will line up with his optimum 11, but I do feel like we are potentially going to be playing definitely some games this season with 2 strikers on. And I feel like that could be Delap and Joao Pedro, whether that's 2 flat, 1 in behind, Joao Pedro playing a little bit off him, Delap on the final man. I don't know. But I do feel like he's quite a similar profile to Nicholas Jackson in that we can utilise him on the 9, but if you have a more traditional striker, you can then put him off the left. Joao Pedro is I still haven't really wrapped my head around it. And I think we're going to have to see him in the squad to understand and to know why he's been brought in. I feel like Jamie Gittens is more straightforward because he there is an out-and-out winger. And that's a transfer that, although Chelsea haven't confirmed it, Borussia Dortmund, I think, have confirmed yesterday that is a done deal. I think they are finalising contract details in the US. Obviously, Borussia Dortmund out in the Club World Cup as well. So I don't know if he will join the squad. Joao Pedro not involved anywhere with Brighton, so it makes sense for him to join the Club World Cup squad. Jamie Gittens, I would have thought, won't be... we'll finish the tournament with Borussia Dortmund and then link up with Chelsea. And I'm assuming he couldn't get knocked out and then play for us in the same competition. I'm assuming cup tide is still a thing, even in this Mickey Mouse tournament. But for me, Jamie Gittens, in the starting 11, there's an obvious position for him, and it's out there on the left. Although I'm a big fan of Noni Madueke, I feel like the left side of midfield just hasn't been nailed down. I feel like Pedro Neto has nailed that down in over last season, but also in the Club World Cup in the last month. 100% Pedro Neto is a starting player, is a starting winger. And I said, one of the first things I said when Chelsea had confirmed the Liam Delap signing was, I think his output is going to skyrocket with Liam Delap in the box. With a box presence, with an actual number 9 to aim at, I think Pedro Neto's output is only going to increase this season. And not only in terms of his assists and the balls that he's putting into the box, but this Club World Cup, he looks so much more confident. He looks sharper than any other Chelsea player by a country mile. And I'm really, really impressed with with Pedro Neto. He's been performing for Portugal as well. And obviously for Chelsea in the last 3 games, he has been our standout player. I think he's got 3 goals in 3 games. He does look like a quality individual. And when you are talking about players that could be potentially on their way out, like Noni Madueke, for all the positives and for all the time that I could sit here and talk good about Noni Madueke and big up his attributes and how much he's improved since joining the squad, how I think that 1v1 he's probably second to none in this team, I just don't see the consistency and the output and the hunger that I do with Pedro Neto. I just feel like Noni Madueke is a player who is developing, yes, but he is not pushing himself to develop faster than he already is, if you get what I mean. And I feel like with Chelsea, number one, obviously, no player is bigger than the club. That has been, an adage as old as time. There is no player that will ever be bigger than the club. So if you start to take things for granted, Maresca had come out multiple points in last season saying how much talent he had, how much he rated Noni Madueke, but it was always about needing to do more. It was always about his work rate and training. Can he go out and score more? Can he go out and assist more? I need him to affect more in the game. And you do feel like with Noni Madueke, the consistency was just never, ever there. He had some brilliant standout games, particularly this season. Wolves hat-trick. There were some really, really good games. I think Brentford was one where he came off the bench and performed really, really well. There were a couple of games that really stick out in your mind that Noni Madueke really turned it on and you just thought, you know what? Yes, there is a place for him in this Chelsea team. There was never any doubt about his talent. It was about the application and about how much he wanted it. And I think that has not necessarily been made clear to us through himself and through his performances, but through other people. And when you see what players like Pedro Neto are prepared to do and willing to do, you do just feel like Noni Madueke does potentially fall a little bit short there. So I do 100% see why Chelsea are looking at a left-sided winger. Another number 9 though, or let's call him a utilitarian attacking player, Joao Pedro, I'm just not sure. And I think, I don't really know whether it's a good fee or not. I think it's a good fee for Chelsea to get from Brighton, but to spend 55 million on a player like Joao Pedro, I feel like you can get way more in the market. I feel like there are a lot of other options that would have been far better value for money. And I'll kind of just go back to the conversation that Charms and I had a couple of weeks ago, talking about which striker should Chelsea bring into the fold. We went through 4 options that were heavily rumoured, heavily linked, as well as obviously Liam Delap, who was confirmed. Actually, I think Liam Delap might have been one of the 4. I can't remember. We went through 4 options. It was Delap, it was Ekitike, Osimhen and Gyökeres. Oh, sorry, and Sesko. There was 5. There was 4 in the lap. So we went through those 4 options. I said Gyökeres would by far be my choice out of those 4. I'm pretty sure Charms would have gone for Sesko. Both of those are available for 70-75 mil. I know there's a whole thing with Victor Gyökeres' contract at the moment. Might go north of 80. Who knows? He really wants to leave. I don't see Sporting Lisbon recouping more than 70-75 mil for him. The situation that he's put them in with his contract, he won't play for them again. They can sit there and say they hold all the cards if they want, but they're not going to be paying his salary if he's, not even involved with the team. A player like that, I think, is worth the 60-70 million. I think you can justify it not only through his track record and his stats, but also You can look at what he's done in the competitions he's played. Europe, he's done it at international level for Sweden. You know, they might not be in the biggest competitions at the World Cup, at the Euros, whatever, but he has a fantastic strike rate at international level, at league level, in European football as well. And you can sit here and say what you want about the Portuguese league and the quality of sporting, but when he's doing it in the Champions League against big teams, there's nothing really that you can say to kind of caveat, and you can't say, oh, most of them are penalties, da-da-da. Okay, all right. I'm not going to sit here and complain that he scores penalties. If he missed penalties, I'd complain and I wouldn't want him, but I'm not going to complain when a geezer scores them. Joao Pedro, however, I just don't think has that track record. And when you're looking at, I know it's part and part, 50, 55 mil is a very standard fee in today's market. You can get a bang average player for 40, 50 mil. And I don't think Joao Pedro's bang average. I think he is very, very good. I think technically he's shown that he has got some fantastic skill, brilliant striking ability. He's able to score a whole range of goals, and he's got a really good striker's instinct as well. I just don't know if I've seen enough. I've seen glimpses and I've seen little bits, but I feel like with Joao Pedro particularly, you've seen more glimpses of his temperament and his anger issues. And I will never forget that elbow he swung. He shouldn't play football ever again just for that. And I mean, the fact that he was shagging a 15-year-old also is not good. And I do not like that. Regardless of how old he was, give a fuck. It's not, nah, man. Why would you want those connotations surrounding your club? Crazy. That alone should be enough to write off a player. But football inability, I see it, but I don't know if I see enough. I just feel like in this squad, you've got so many players, so many will they, won't they players. And if you're looking at players, we did a quick comparison there of who they're, Gittens and Madueke in terms of who he's most likely to replace in the squad. Who Joao Pedro is most likely to replace is Christopher Nkunku. And Christopher Nkunku was almost our top scorer last season in all comps for the goals that he scored in the Conference League. He put very good numbers in the first half of the season. Second half of the season, yes, he dropped off. His performances, his output dropped off a cliff, but so did his minutes. It was, very clear post-January that Christopher Nkunku didn't have a long-term future at his club, which is a big shame. But I look at Christopher Nkunku and what he did with Leipzig, some of the goals he scored at Chelsea, against Liverpool, against Bournemouth, where we turned around and went, holy fuck, this is our guy. Yes, he can still do it. He has beaten the injuries. He isn't dead. Is Joao Pedro an upgrade on Christopher Nkunku? I don't know. I know a lot of Chelsea fans are blinded. We've had the wool pulled over our eyes with Christopher Nkunku, but I do not know if Joao Pedro is an honest upgrade. I don't know if I've seen enough to sit here and say he has, but from what I've seen, I can't. I would rather have Christopher Nkunku as a squad player than Joao Pedro. Look, fingers crossed he proves me wrong. Fingers crossed he continues to bring the Joga Bonito. Obviously, we've got Esteval Willian, joining the club, who's going to be bringing that flair in. Fingers crossed it does fit with the mantra, the style that we are trying to build next season, because that's definitely something I want to see more of from this Chelsea side. Yes, we got the pragmatism down to a T last season, and we got the basics done, and as a whole, defence pretty solid. We scored a good amount of goals. We were creating more. It's just about taking the chances that we do. But also, I want to see an attacking identity. I want to see some more style. There is no doubt that players like Esteval Willian, Jamie Gittens will bring that in. But, having a number 9 like Liam Delap, someone that has excellent striking ability, but is kind of a very traditional number 9, as opposed to having someone, Joao Pedro, who is a lot better maybe with the ball at his feet and his back to goal. Look, I don't know. I think there are positives and negatives to the transfer, as there are with every single player that Chelsea bring in. But the Joao Pedro one for me is kind of, I just can't really wrap my head around it, I feel. Whereas the Gittens one, makes a lot more sense personally. But that one, again, will obviously have its critics. £55 million for another 20-year-old English player. And look, we know the archetype. We know the blueprint for an English winger that goes over to the Bundesliga and succeeds. At Borussia Dortmund alone, you've had, in the last couple of years, English players that have done well at Borussia Dortmund. You've had, now both the Bellingham brothers. You've had Jadon Sancho. You've had Gittens, you've had Chukwuemeka. There are a lot of players. It seems to be a very good breeding ground, for English talent, the Bundesliga. But you do hesitate. I think when you look at how those players have ended up, I feel like you've got to take it with a pinch of salt. There's a lot of risk involved coming over from a completely different league. All the bonuses, the positives around Jamie Gittens are, his directness, his explosive dribbling ability. 1v1 is very, very good. He's very quick. He's very direct. He wants to go and beat his man. And a lot of those things, I think you could say that about Noni Madueke as well. I think Gittens is probably more so to an extent. I think, I don't know whether his final third, whether his ball in the final third, whether his decision-making is much better. I think obviously he's right-footed, so playing off that left side, allows him to cut in and stick it in the far corner, which is exactly what Noni Madueke liked doing off the left, off the right, sorry. But having Noni on the left, I feel like it made him make that decision because he couldn't cut in and go on in his right, because obviously he's left-footed. It meant that he had to put more balls into the box. And that was when I thought Noni Madueke was at his most effective, when he could go either way, because he wanted to go inside and shoot, even though it's on his weaker foot. But he has the ability to go both sides, whereas when he's on the right side, he didn't really like going on the right and putting a cross in. He liked cutting in every single time. It was very, very one note. And I feel like with Jamie Gittens, I don't know if he's good enough on his left to outweigh that, to combat the Noni. You know what I mean? I don't know if he is better on his left crossing than Noni is on his right. I think finishing ability, probably quite similar. Jamie Gittens is probably just a little bit more developed and a little bit better in terms of his end product when it comes to putting the ball in the back of the net. But again, it's just, and while I say yes, I can see a position for him in this squad, it's more so, it's the risk. And is this an upgrade? Is this what we need to take the team to the next level? I'm not doubting that, having not made Sancho permanent, losing Mykhailo Mudryk, potentially losing Noni Madueke to Arsenal, there is definitely room in this squad for a left-sided or for a right-footed left winger, which is reportedly the profile that Enzo Maresca and the sporting directors and the owners all want to go out and get. But those proven examples they're very few and far between. We've seen today or yesterday Nico Williams signing a new contract extension at Athletic Bilbao. It would have been an astronomical salary, an astronomical deal if he had gone elsewhere. I think if he had, it was only ever going to be Barcelona. But you see the wages and the fees that top wingers command when you're looking and talking about players like Kvaratskhelia. There are, 50 mil, 60 mil. You want to be buying a player who's been there, done that. And for 55 million, again, Jamie Gittens for me, I really, really like the player. I think he looks on paper fantastic, but to me, it's more the application. It's more, is this an instant upgrade? Does this improve the team? Yes, he's young and English, so he's going to fit in with the likes of Palmer, Delap. It's interesting. Let me know what you think. Let me know who you think is going to be a better signing as well. I did put that on the story the other day. Joao Pedro or Jamie Gittens for very similar fees. I'm quite pleased that, it's going to give us good metrics to go off and compare them this season. But obviously, as I mentioned, they are different players, different positions. They're going to have different roles and responsibilities in this team. Gittens, you would imagine, more of a provider. Joao Pedro, more of a finisher. But it remains to be seen. Will Joao Pedro be played as a number 9? Will he be played alongside Liam Delap? Do you agree with me that Enzo Maresca could tweak the system this season? Very interesting. Very interesting. We will, fingers crossed, get answers to a lot of these questions tonight as Chelsea do play Palmeiras and the quarterfinal of the Club World Cup. Obviously, fingers crossed we can go all the way. I think it's, Fluminense or Al Hilal in the semi-final? I think. I'm not sure. But the winner of those two will play somebody, and then most likely we'll have a European heavyweight if we do make it to the final. But let's beat what's ahead of us first. Esteval Willian on show tonight. I will never turn down an opportunity to watch Esteval Willian. Very, very entertaining player. And let's just tell Reece and Cucurella to take it easy tonight, because if anything happens to him prior to him joining, it would be the most typical Chelsea thing for Esteval Willian to get injured tonight in a challenge with one of our players, and then us go through and him never play Palmeiras. It would be. I can see it written in the stars already. But let me know what you think. Get your predictions in the chat if you are going to watch tonight. I will be putting some content out tomorrow. Summarising it will probably be just short focused or a short reel. But we will be back on Tuesday we'll catch up on all things Chelsea. Obviously, we'll discuss the transfers in a little bit more detail. We'll get my co-host, Mr. C Money Picks. We'll get his thoughts on Joao Pedro and Gittens, on the potential move of Noni Madueke going to Arsenal. Of all the players that we've given Arsenal, Noni Madueke would be, I'd be most upset about Madueke because I think he's a serious player and I think he's still got a lot of developing to do, a lot to give. And if he was to go and play backup to Bukayo Saka at Arsenal, I think that's pretty good depth, to be completely honest. I'd much rather he went to Tottenham, but I think he'd do it there as well. I think he'd do it anywhere in the Premier League. I think Noni Madueke, being as direct as roaring as he is and still developing, I think he will succeed wherever he goes. And I will be gutted if he does leave because I still think he's got a lot to give. I think he could be a starter if he applied himself. But I just, I see the way the mechanism works. I can see 2-3 moves plodding along and, with the rumours gaining momentum, with stuff kind of gaining traction this week. I think, I'd be surprised if Noni Madueke was still with the Chelsea squad by the end of August. But let me know what you think. Do you think it would be a mistake to let Noni Madueke go? And, well, is Gittens an upgrade? Is he enough of an upgrade? Is the better question, but is he an upgrade? Make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like I said, we will be back on Tuesday. Obviously, make sure to follow us at 2 Blues Podcast on the Instagram and the TikTok. And before I forget, I did mean to do this at the start of the video. But just a quick thing saying rest in peace to Diogo Jota. Obviously, heartbreaking to hear that him and his brother Andre, rest in peace to him too. Heartbreaking to hear that at just 28 years old. So yeah, anybody affected, his family, his friends, my thoughts go out to you unconditionally. And yeah, don't forget to tell the people that you love them, and don't take life for granted. Until next time.